Welcome, focused learners, to this explainer. Expanding across borders is pretty much the ultimate growth goal for so many businesses out there. But let's be real, crossing that bridge between domestic success and a true international presence, it's notoriously tricky. So today, we're going to explore how Trade and Investment Bangladesh, or T&IB for short, actually transforms global expansion from what feels like a high-stakes gamble into a highly structured, strategic success. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with the global expansion dilemma, look at why going alone fails, and then introduce T&IB's strategic support. From there, we'll unpack their 10-step export framework, talk about entering the Bangladesh market, and finally wrap up with your gateway to global success.
Kicking things off with Section 1, the global expansion dilemma.
We all know international markets present absolutely massive opportunities. But we really have to ask ourselves, is international expansion just a giant gamble? Well, the rewards are undeniably huge, right? You get diversified customer bases, economies of scale, and access to brand new technologies. But without the right approach, the risks are severe. In fact, up to 70% of unguided international expansions completely fail to hit their targets. Doing it without a guide is honestly like throwing darts blindfolded. I mean, we literally live in an era with zero geographical boundaries. Advances in digital technology, global logistics, and cross-border communication have technically opened up the world to businesses of absolutely all sizes. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. While you are no longer limited by geography, simply having the ambition to sell overseas just isn't enough anymore. Navigating complex international regulations, totally different customer preferences, and really intense local competitors, that requires absolute precision. Which brings us to Section 2, why going alone fails. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is looking at what happens when that precision is missing. When businesses try to navigate this alone, they end up making incredibly costly mistakes. We're talking about selecting the wrong market based on just a gut feeling instead of hard intelligence, or falling victim to fake buyers after spending a fortune on useless contact databases. Sometimes they misunderstand complex international customs regulations, which literally leads to rejected consignments at the border. Or they make disastrous pricing mistakes by forgetting to account for shipping, insurance, and local taxes. This whole DIY approach almost always leads to delayed entry and failed partnerships. A major reason for that failure is a lack of what we call export readiness. Simply put, this is a business's true capacity to compete internationally. It factors in your actual production capacity, your product quality, financial capability, and regulatory compliance. Jumping into a new market before you're truly ready, that pretty much guarantees dissatisfied customers, messy contractual disputes, and a severely damaged reputation that can be incredibly hard to bounce back from. Moving right along to Section 3, enter T&I strategic support. This is where Trade and Investment Bangladesh steps in. And to be clear, they are not just a standard consulting firm that hands you a thick, dusty report and wishes you good luck. No, they are a hands-on, highly trusted strategic partner. They work side by side with entrepreneurs, SMEs, and even massive multinational corporations to turn that high-risk global expansion into a carefully structured, commercially viable growth initiative. They're literally with you from the very first strategy session all the way through to market execution. Let's just compare the dangerous amateur method of exporting against T&IB's professional methodology for a second. Relying on the trial and error assumptions of going alone leads directly to financial loss, compliance failure, and massive delays. Conversely, the T&IB approach replaces all that guesswork with real market intelligence, rigorous due diligence, and actual buyer-seller matchmaking. And the expected outcomes? Well, you're looking at significantly reduced risk, much faster market entry, and real sustainable growth. Let's break down exactly how they do that in Section 4, the 10-step export framework. So, the crucial point is, how do they practically achieve this? It starts with Phase 1, preparation and strategy. First up, an honest export readiness assessment to identify any gaps in your capabilities. Then, deep market research to select the right country, not just the biggest market, mind you, but the most suitable one for you. Next, they develop a highly customized international market entry strategy, figuring out if you should use direct exporting, a joint venture, or local distributors. Finally, steps 4 and 5 ensure your product is positioned, branded, and priced correctly to actually be competitive and profitable. This builds a rock-solid foundation. But before moving forward, there is a totally critical concept we need to highlight:
commercial due diligence. This means strictly verifying a potential partner's financial standing, their legal status, and their market credibility. Because in international trade, trust is everything. T&IB performs this rigorous check before you ever sign any commercial agreements abroad, completely saving you from fraud, non-payment, and messy legal disputes down the line.
Let's move to and see how this builds into phase 2, which is all about execution and operations. T&IB moves way past those random, useless databases and facilitates genuine buyer identification and matchmaking. They perform the commercial due diligence we just talked about. They recruit the right local distributors and agents on the ground. They meticulously handle all the crazy export documentation and compliance, so your shipments aren't just sitting delayed at customs. And finally, they leverage international business networking to create long-term partnerships. This is exactly how paper plans are turned into actual profitable shipments. Shifting gears a bit, here is Section 5, entering the Bangladesh market. And this brilliantly illustrates T&IB's dual threat capability. Everything we've discussed so far helps domestic companies go global. That's their outbound export support for local Bangladeshi businesses. But equally vital are their inbound market entry services for foreign investors. If a multinational company wants to enter Bangladesh, T&IB serves as the absolute perfect local guide. They provide investment feasibility analysis, they support company formation, and they identify those trustworthy local partners you absolutely need. Now, you might be wondering, why is this inbound service so crucial right now? Well, because Bangladesh is a remarkably lucrative destination. It currently ranks as one of the fastest-growing economies in all of Asia, with GDP growth consistently outpacing its regional peers. It offers a massive, highly youthful workforce and incredibly competitive manufacturing costs. Plus, it provides strategic geographic access to huge regional markets and boasts really strong government support for foreign investment across sectors like garments, ICT, healthcare, and logistics. Basically, T&I bridges the gap between foreign capital and immense local opportunity. Bringing us to our final part, Section 6, your gateway to global success. So as we bring all these pieces together, what is the ultimate payoff for you? The takeaways are incredibly clear and tangible. Partnering with T&I means you dramatically reduce your business risks, which protects both your capital and your hard-earned reputation. You achieve much faster, more efficient market entry, entirely bypassing years of frustrating trial and error. You gain immediate access to reliable international networks of buyers and investors, your product achieves a stronger competitive positioning, and ultimately, you set your business up for sustainable, long-term global growth, rather than just chasing one isolated shipment. This entire philosophy is perfectly captured by Md Joynal Abdin, the founder and CEO of T&IB, who states, T&IB is more than a business consultant, a long-term partner in sustainable growth. That really hits the nail on the head. They aren't just selling advice, they are actively investing their expertise straight into your company's success story. Which leaves us with one final, provocative question to think about. Are you ready to take the first step toward global expansion? Whether you are a local business looking outward or a foreign investor looking inward, the opportunities are absolutely there. But the execution? That requires a trusted guide. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Focus, learners. Stay curious, stay structured, and definitely explore how T&IB can unlock your global potential.